It's one of those moments that changes everything. A single duel, two brothers on opposite sides of a volcanic nightmare, and one burning question nobody ever wants to ask. What if Anakin Skywalker actually won on Mustafar? What if Obi-Wan didn't walk away limping and heartbroken, but instead never walked away at all? Because, let's be honest, Anakin wasn't just close to winning, he was right there. One bad step from Obi-Wan, one extra second of hesitation, and we're looking at a very different future. No Vader suit, no wheezy life support system, just Anakin Skywalker, scarred by betrayal, powered by rage, and free to reshape the galaxy however he wants. And here's where it gets messy. With Obi-Wan out of the picture, the entire Resistance effort falls apart before it even begins. There's no secret training for Luke, no protective exile for Leia, no desert hermit babysitting the future of the galaxy. The rebellion, stillborn Padma alone, broken, probably never makes it off that landing platform alive. It's a chilling thought, and yet, it's kind of fascinating. Because if Anakin survives unscathed, if he becomes the face of the Empire instead of a mechanical monster hiding behind a mask, he doesn't just conquer the galaxy, he charms it into submission. Jedi, who once feared him, might start following him. Not because they agree, but because they're terrified. And honestly, can you blame them? And yeah, it sounds like a total disaster. But it also makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about Star Wars. What if the tragedy wasn't that Anakin fell, but that Obi-Wan lived just long enough to stop him? What if the galaxy would have burned faster, but brighter, and the war ended before it really began? Is that better? Worse? Or just another version of the same story, from a darker angle? In this video, we're diving headfirst into the alternate timeline where Anakin defeats Obi-Wan on Mustafar. No suit, no mask. Just a fully powered Sith Lord walking away from the fire with nothing left to lose. We'll break down what changes, who dies, who survives, and whether the galaxy ever even gets a second chance. Because if Anakin wins, the entire story of Star Wars flips on its head, and nothing, absolutely nothing, plays out the same. We all know how the duel on Mustafar ended. Obi-Wan standing victorious, Anakin screaming in the dirt like a barbecue gone wrong. But what if it didn't go that way? What if Anakin landed the final blow, stood over Obi-Wan's body, and walked away as the true Dark Lord of the galaxy? That one change sends ripples through everything. Every character, every outcome, and the entire balance of the Force itself. Think about it. No Vader suit, no robotic breathing, no psychological prison behind a mask. Just Anakin fully intact, fully enraged, and completely untethered from whatever conscience he had left. The Emperor doesn't have to save a broken apprentice. He gets a young, powerful, and now totally unopposed Sith, who just took down one of the best Jedi that ever lived. Obi-Wan's death doesn't just change the battlefield, changes the narrative. It removes the one man who actually believed Anakin could be saved. The only Jedi who could have trained Luke without fear or bitterness. And the only person who had the guts to challenge the Emperor's plans without falling apart. With Obi-Wan gone, everything gets darker faster. And imagine the state of the galaxy with Anakin as Palpatine's prized weapon. He's not locked inside a mask. He's a walking nightmare with the face of a fallen hero. He could still lead clone battalions, still move among crowds, still bend the galaxy with a smile and a saber, and there'd be nothing, absolutely nothing, standing in his way. So yeah, it all starts with one swing, one missed opportunity, one alternate outcome on those lava-soaked cliffs, and suddenly the galaxy isn't saved by hope, it's conquered by rage. This isn't just a fan theory, it's a glimpse into a version of Star Wars that's a whole lot scarier, and maybe a little too believable. Here's the part that drives me crazy. Anakin was always one wrong step away from snapping, and the Jedi saw it coming a mile away. But what did they do? Not train him better, not guide him closer, just sit around offering cryptic advice and hoping he'd figure it out. And then they act shocked when he starts choking his wife and slicing up younglings like it's open mic night for Sith apprentices. And Obi-Wan, poor Obi-Wan, spends years mentoring this emotional grenade with a lightsaber, and the most the Council ever gives him is a pat on the back and another mission. He's literally the only one trying to balance friendship with discipline, compassion with structure, and everyone else is just like, he'll be fine, really? You're betting galactic peace on vibes and denial. If Anakin had actually killed Obi-Wan, it wouldn't have been some random outcome. It would have been the result of years of systemic Jedi failure. They let the most volatile Force user in history stew in resentment and confusion while they sat in marble chairs debating politics. And then they act surprised when it explodes in flames and screams. And this is where it really hurts. Because in this version of the story, Anakin doesn't just lose himself, he loses everything that made him human. There's no Vader mask to hide behind, no tragic symbolism of a fallen knight limping through mechanical life. Just Anakin, raw, angry, and fully responsible for what he's become. Padme still confronts him, still pleads with him, still begs him to stop. But with Obi-Wan already gone, there's no check on his fury, no voice of reason to hold him back. You think the Force choke in the original timeline was brutal? Imagine what he does now, without fear of loss, without a shred of guilt. It's not a tragic accident. It's deliberate and final. And the twins, Luke and Leia, they never get hidden safely away, because the man hunting them isn't in a life support system anymore. He's a fully operational Sith Lord with a personal vendetta and a galaxy of spies at his disposal. Bail Organa doesn't make it out. Yoda doesn't survive exile, and Luke never gets to stare at twin suns, because they never rise again. The tragedy here isn't just death, it's the loss of redemption. Without Obi-Wan, there's no one to plant the seed of doubt in Vader's heart. No one to tell Luke the truth. No one to protect Leia or inspire rebellion. The future dies before it can even take its first breath. And the dark side wins with a clean sweep. This isn't just a darker timeline, it's a hopeless one. Because when Anakin wins on Mustafar, he doesn't become a symbol of tragedy. He becomes a monster with no mask, and no one left to stop him. And yet, you have to admit, it would be terrifyingly impressive Anakin. No longer confined to a damaged body or forced to rely on tech to breathe, just raw, unleashed power. He was already tearing through Jedi in the temple like they were training dummies. Now imagine him doing that, with no guilt, no leash, and all of Palpatine's support behind him. He becomes the face of the Empire, not a symbol of fear hidden behind a mask, but a legend, a war hero, the fallen chosen one leading the charge. You don't get propaganda that strong without rewriting every myth in the galaxy. And who's going to argue? He already killed Kenobi. What hope does anyone else have? He doesn't need stormtroopers at his side. He is the storm. Jedi cells, erased, rebel whispers, silenced before they echo. It's not just his combat power, it's the charisma, the intelligence, the way he was raised to lead. Without the injuries, Anakin becomes the perfect Sith weapon, agile, deadly, persuasive, and unstoppable. But even in this nightmare scenario, even if Anakin walks away from Mustafar victorious, not everything is doomed, because the Force, for all its mystery and madness, has a funny way of balancing itself out. Maybe the timeline shifts. Maybe the heroes fall faster, but hope has a way of slipping through the cracks. Leia was always a fighter, and without Obi-Wan or Bail to guide her, she might become something even more fearless. A rogue Force user, trained in secret. Or a politician, turned rebel with nothing left to lose. And Luke, even if hidden differently, would still carry that spark, that same Skywalker fire that refused to die. Maybe Yoda doesn't hide. Maybe he trains someone else. Maybe Ahsoka senses the shift in the Force and makes a move. The pieces are scattered. The odds are worse. But the will to resist doesn't disappear just because Anakin wins one duel. It just takes longer. It costs more, but it still lives. And who's to say Anakin himself doesn't waver? He still has memories, still has Padme's voice echoing in his mind. And the guilt doesn't need a suit to settle in. You can be whole, powerful, successful, and still haunted by the silence after every scream you caused. Redemption might be delayed, but it's never entirely erased. So even in this broken timeline, there's a sliver of light. Not enough to stop the fall. Maybe not enough to save the Republic, but enough to remind us that no matter how strong the darkness gets, there's always someone, somewhere, willing to rise against it. But here's the truth. If Anakin killed Obi-Wan on Mustafar, he wouldn't just rewrite the future, he'd erase the past. Everything they fought for, every battle, every lesson, every promise of peace, all burned away in the name of control. And with no one left to challenge him, no pain to slow him down, Anakin wouldn't fall from grace, he'd bulldoze right through it. There's no redemption in a story where your best friend dies at your hand and you never look back. There's no symbolism in a villain who doesn't suffer, only power and silence. And the slow erosion of everything human inside you. Anakin would win. Yes, but the price would be unbearable, not for him, but for the galaxy he leaves behind. Because what Obi-Wan represented: balance, restraint. Compassion is exactly what Anakin never learned to value. And by killing him, he wouldn't just destroy a man. He'd destroy the very last reminder of who he used to be. The Jedi would be gone, the hope scattered, and the Force itself. Twisted beyond recognition, the Empire would rise faster, burn brighter, and fall harder. But not before silencing billions, breaking hearts, and turning legends into ashes. This isn't a story of glory, it's a story of unchecked grief, of talent without direction, of love twisted into obsession until nothing pure remains. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please consider looking at my pinned comment and checking out the links for my Amazon storefront. It contains my favorite Legos, my gear in which I make videos, and comics that I read on a daily basis. I update it constantly, so please take a moment and click on the link. On top of that, check out my second channel, Critical Analysis Hub Plus, and my third channel, Critical Analysis Hub XP. Just one click would go on a long way in supporting my channels and future in YouTube.